Hi everyone, a very good morning to all of you. Today is 10th of April and I welcome you all to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, in the today's video, we are going to discuss all articles of Hindu which are relevant for our examination. And also I would like to tell you that if you want, you can download entire notes, synoptic notes of this particular session. These notes are available on our Telegram channel. Link for Telegram is given in description box in YouTube. Now these notes have been simplified, have been rearranged with respect to the exam needs that are there. For example, context, core issues, and then a way forward, so that an entire mains answer on this particular theme can be written from only this particular content. So let's get started with this session. And in every class, we start with a GS quotation, which you can use to complement your answers in mains as well as in essay paper. So today we are going to take quotation from uh, Aristotle, Greek philosopher. Aristotle says that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So just knowledge of facts is not important. Rather, one needs to inculcate certain moral values. One needs to inculcate certain ethics, because without ethics, just the factual knowledge will be of no use. And in fact, in the past, we have seen that people who have brought a lot of misery in this world are the one who were very much intelligent but didn't had ethics. Fine. So you can use this particular quotation in GS paper number 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude. Okay, GS paper number 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude. Now moving on, and the first article, guys, that I'm going to take is climate crisis is not gender neutral. Now, before going in this particular article, I would like to explain you some basic aspects which will be important for GS paper number 1, social issues. By the way, this particular article, guys, we are going to see with respect to GS 1, social issues, impact of climate change on women, and secondly also with respect to the GS paper number 3, the impact of climate change we are going to see. So both GS 1 as well as GS paper number 3, this article will be important. So let's discuss about one important aspect. Okay, so basically, guys, understand this particular thing. There is a concept of intersectionality that is given. There is a concept of intersectionality. Intersectionality. Now, understand this particular thing. Concept of intersectionality very simply provides this particular thing, that often certain people's vulnerability enhances due to the intersection of multiple identities. Okay, one simple a simple example of this I will give. Suppose climate change is there. Now climate change is a issue and we think that it will impact everyone equally, we say that okay, it is a natural phenomena, it cannot discriminate, human will discriminate, but climate change, flood, how it will discriminate? It will not discriminate. But no, it is not the situation. Climate change will impact people who are poor. They will be impacted more. Particularly the women and children, they'll be impacted more. Okay, now what has happened? Suppose poor women are there, they will be impacted the most. To understand this thing, that when multiple identities are intersecting, for example, this is an individual, this individual is women, secondly this individual is poor, thirdly this particular individual, women, poor, and this particular individual lives in specific area which is more prone to the climate change, climate vulnerabilities. So this poor women living in vulnerable area will be far more prone to a rich man living in such a kind of an area which is not that much impacted. So concept of intersectionality provides this thing, that often intersection of multiple identities will enhance your vulnerability. One more application of intersectionality we can take, there is the concept of intersectional feminism. There is this concept of intersectional feminism. Now, what intersectional feminism provides, let's understand this also. Now, see, often we say that yes, women are vulnerable. We say women are vulnerable. Women have to be given equality. But we think that all women are equally vulnerable. We think that all women are equally vulnerable. That is not the case. All women are not equally vulnerable. If suppose you have this woman, she is vulnerable because of gender. But then there is another woman. She is poor, she is from scheduled caste community, she is disabled. Now the women 1 and women 2 are not equally vulnerable. Women 2 is more vulnerable. Why? Because her vulnerability comes from gender, then her vulnerability comes from her caste, then third her vulnerability comes from her status, that is she is disabled. So intersection of multiple identities will enhance the vulnerability of certain people more. Remember this particular concept, very important concept for your examination. I'll give you one line note also for intersectionality. Please write, I am giving you the note here. Okay, intersectionality pertains to a social phenomena. Intersectionality pertains to a social phenomena which advocates that all people are not equally vulnerable. Rather, intersection of multiple identities enhance the vulnerability of a particular group or an individual Intersectional feminism, next paragraph, intersectional feminism is a related concept. Intersectional feminism is a related concept which was given by Kimberly Crenshaw. Kimberly Crenshaw, which was given by Kimberly Crenshaw. Kimberly Crenshaw. It provides, Kimberly Crenshaw, it provides that in fact, all women are not equally vulnerable. That in fact, all women are not equally vulnerable. Women belonging to poor strata, or to minority groups are far more vulnerable than are far more vulnerable than women in women belonging to elite section of society. Fine. Okay, so guys, so this is a related concept. Now, you will be able to use it at multiple places. Now we'll start with this particular article. The climate crisis is not gender neutral. And actually, guys, one thing I would like to ask you that please tell me that whether we should give such kind of additional content dictation. Okay, fine. Now, this particular article, what the article is talking about? Article is talking about that when we talk about a climate crisis that is coming, fine, this climate crisis is not gender neutral. This climate crisis will impact women more and more. So again, the concept of intersectional feminism has come here. Now, article has given certain data from some of the reports also, and I will advise you to please take down these particular data. First of all, article provides this particular thing that when we talk about UNDP's data, that is United Nations Development Program, it provides that actually women and children are 14 times more vulnerable. Women and children are 14 times more vulnerable. They are more likely to die. They are more likely to die in a disaster compared to the men. Why? Because guys, here a lot of factors plays an important role. Fine, a lot of factor plays an important role. For example, for example, we find this particular thing. Women are most of the time limited to household chores. Most of the time limited to household chores. So basically, their instincts with respect to their instincts with respect to their instincts with respect to manage a physical crisis. Okay, their physical mobility is restricted. Okay, because of these particular factors, they are the ones which are most impacted. Then also, basically, recently what has happened, Supreme Court of India, it came out with a judgment. Okay, now actually Supreme Court's stand also we need to understand. First of all, you already know that Article 21 includes the right to clean environment. Article 21 includes the right to clean environment. This is the old thing, everybody knows it. But guys, just 2 days back, if you have followed the newspaper analysis, Supreme Court has ruled this particular thing that also there is a fundamental right to get protected against the negative impacts of climate change. There is a fundamental right to get protected against the negative impacts of climate change. So these are the two fundamental rights that have been recognized by the Supreme Court. Okay. Now, article further provides this particular thing that if we see the data by National Family Health Survey 4 and National Family Health Survey 5, it provides this particular thing that women who are actually living in the drought prone area, women who are living in drought prone area, they tend to be underweight. They tend to experience more intimate partner violence and had a higher prevalence of girl marriage, Now, why this particular thing is there? Now, see this particular thing that women living in the drought prone area means that water availability is not there. If water availability is not there, women has to go every day many kilometers to fetch the water. Because of that particular thing, their physical exertion increases. Because of that particular physical exertion, what happens? They tend to be underweight. Also, they experience more intimate partner violence. Now understand this thing that when we talk about water happens to be the basic necessity of life. And if water availability is not there, what happens? It enhances the physiological anxieties, and because of that, it leads to frustration, and that frustration becomes the reason for intimate partner violence. It becomes the reasons for the partner violence. Understand this thing that when we talk about women have low bargaining power. And because of that thing, all the anger, frustration, particularly by the male, it is vented on women. Fine. So this is something that's there. Okay, there is more prevalence of girl marriage. Fine. Then why more prevalence of girl marriage? See, girl marriage, it prevails in the poverty. So fine, poor are more likely. There are other reasons also for girl marriage, but actually poverty is the number one reason for girl marriages. Now the areas facing drought. Fine, what happens most of the time? Now see, first of all, when we talk about guys, majority of people, even today, a large number of people are dependent on agriculture. Now, even in agriculture, 60% of agriculture in India is of rain-fed type. It is rain-fed agriculture, means that they dependent on rain. And if area is vulnerable to drought, what will happen? The agriculture will be negatively impacted. And as agriculture will be negatively impacted, what will happen? Poverty will increase. And as poverty will increase, prevalence of girl marriages will be there. Now see, we are discussing this thing. These things actually are not provided in detail, but you need to understand the correlations that why such kind of things are happening. Now, in this capacity, there was a report released by CEEW, that is Council of Energy, Environment and Water. And this particular report provides that 75% of districts in India, they are vulnerable to hydromet disasters. Hydromet disasters are disaster involving water. For example, some area will face flood, some area will face drought, some area will face cyclone, some area will face tsunami. So 75% of districts are facing they are facing vulnerability from hydromet disaster or drought. also understand this thing, that what happens because of these disasters, because of the changes that are coming into the hydrological cycle of the earth, availability of safe drinking water declines. Availability of safe drinking water declines. Okay, women will need to go even more far to fetch the water. What it will do, it will increase their drudgery. It will reduce their time for productive work. And when their time for productive work will decline, they cannot participate in female labor force participation. They cannot participate in labor force. And because of that, female labor force participation rate in India, it stands at just 37%, according to Periodic Labor Force Survey 22-23 report. Who releases this report? This report is released by the National Statistical Office under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. This is some additional information. Please note it down, not given in the article. So the time for productive work will go down, and as the time for productive work will go down, see, they cannot participate in labor force. But very important aspect. The next thing that comes here is that, guys, basically gender-based violence already we have discussed. Next is the health impact of climate change. Now when we talk about the health impact, there have been the studies which provide that because of the air pollution, physical growth get restricted, cognitive growth get restricted. This will specifically be impacting children more and more. Now guys, women will also be impacted. Why? Because understand this thing, that indoor pollution that we talk about, because of the usage of cow dung cakes, usage of wood in cooking, sometimes, and a lot of times, it has been seen that indoor pollution is far more than the outdoor pollution. 5 lakh women, they suffer because of the indoor pollution. Now it leads to respiratory disease, it leads to cardiovascular disease. And according to the studies, it has been seen that 10 microgram per cubic meter increase in PM 2.5, it increases the risk of lung cancer by 9%. Cardiovascular deaths can be increased, will be increased by 3%, and the strokes will increase by 8%. So you will find that, okay, it seems very marginal, just 10 micrograms. 10 microgram increase in PM 2.5 increases the health impact, health vulnerabilities. So this is the issue. Now, what can be way forward? What can be the suggestions in this particular capacity? So first is that understand this thing, what we need to do, we need to empower women. We need to ensure that women became the decision makers. Women became the decision makers in all the policies which are related to climate change and development. Now, in this capacity, one specific point I want to I want to discuss, that see what happened. India has in the past come out with a national action plan on climate change, also has come out with a state action plan on climate change. Now, both of these, a national action plan on climate change and state action plan on climate change, they recognize women that they are the victims of climate change. This approach has to now change. Rather than seeing them as the victims of climate change, we need to see them as the decision makers. We need to see them as change makers. Okay. So transformative approach is first of all needed to understand the to transformative approach is needed, and the way we see women, why it needs to be changed. First is this. Second thing is that actually we need to focus on local solutions and adaptation methods. Now, tribals, rural women, they have a rich knowledge of environmental conservation. For example, in past there have been structures which have utilized the rainwater harvesting very much efficiently. In areas where there is a drought, what has happened through the what has happened, indigenous communities have prepared seeds which can withstand droughts. So what we need to do, we need to go back to the basics, and we need to use the traditional knowledge for water conservation, traditional knowledge for carrying agriculture in the drought prone areas. Adaptation methodologies that have been used in the past are now to be used. So what we need to do, we need to take this traditional knowledge as a base. Fine, we need to further upgrade it with the knowledge. We need to give tools to the women, we need to give resources, and we need to encourage these local solutions wherever is possible. Then there is one more category which needs to be emphasized. So urgent measures are needed to impact the heat waves. Now guys, so when we talk about heat waves actually are increasing and they are assuming serious proportions. In fact, what has happened? States and UTs, they have been asked to submit data on the heat stroke cases. So there is the integrated health information portal, which contains informations with respect to the disease outbreaks, etc. So heat strokes, fine, their information is to be provided because it has become a major concern. Now there are outdoor workers, there are construction workers, there are delivery workers, there are the pregnant women who are there, fine, elderly who are there, they are needed to be protected from these heat waves. And for that, urban planning need to ensure that tree cover is being increased. Heat resilient housing is to be provided. Now, under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we provide housing, but that housing needs to be heat proof. That housing needs to be disaster proof. Such kind of focuses are needed to be made. So that is all about this particular article. Now, moving to the next article, gross mismanagement. Now, this particular article will see with respect to GS paper 2. We'll see this article with respect to the GS paper number 2. Issues related to health. Issues related to health. Social justice. Fine. So, GS 2 health, social justice. We are going to see this particular article. Now, let's get started with this article. So, basically, guys, understand that TB, tuberculosis happens to be a major health crisis in India. Tuberculosis happens to be the major health crisis in India. Now, when we talk about tuberculosis, okay, so tuberculosis, it is caused by the bacteria that is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. Now, this particular bacteria can attack kidneys, fine, can attack lungs, fine. So, there is pulmonary TB, there is extra pulmonary TB. There is pulmonary TB, there is extra pulmonary TB. Now, often what can happen, a person might have got infected by the TB bacteria, but that bacteria will not manifest any symptoms. That is the case of latent TB. That is the case of latent TB, that a person is carrying the TB bacteria, but the TB bacteria is not manifesting in any kind of a symptoms. Active TB is when the symptoms get manifested. Now, when we talk about the tuberculosis, fine, India is running TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. And as a part of this initiative, by 2025, TB is to be eliminated. TB is to be eliminated. Now, this particular goal is 2030 for the world. India also had the goal of 2030, but recently we revised it and we are now say that by 2025 we are going to eradicate TB in India. Okay, now when we talk about TB, guys, understand certain aspects with respect to the TB. So, fine. Often what happens, TB becomes drug resistant. TB becomes drug resistant. TB becomes drug resistant. Now, basically, what happened, there is dots therapy or dots treatment which is available for TB. But many number of times, because people are not able to continue, many reasons are there, and we'll see it also in this article. Because they don't continue the treatment, what happens? The bacteria, it develops the drug resistance. So there is multi drug resistant TB. That is a very big problem. That is a very big problem in India. Fine. Multi drug resistant TB is a very big problem. Now, I told you that this drug resistant TB, it develops because a person is not able to a person doesn't continue the treatment. Now, why a person is not able to continue the treatment? A very big reason is that there are the drug shortages in India. There are the drug shortages in India. And in this capacity, if we see a study from 2010, it was provided that non-availability of drug was responsible for 8% of the non-adherent patients. Okay. So 8% of the patient, the total people who did not follow their treatment, 8% did not follow. Why? Because the drugs was not available. Now, what happened? We have renamed the TB elimination program. We reduced the timeline to 2025, but this drug shortage problem is still there. Drug shortage problem is there. Fine, there is problem in delayed diagnosis, but once diagnosis is happen, drugs are not available. Okay, this is something that is there. So basically, what can be the way forward? Way forward is that number one, we need to ensure that the drug availability is there, and for that particular thing, we need to prevent the drug stockouts and disruptions in the drug supply chain. India happens to be the biggest generic drug manufacturing facility in the world, and India is called as the pharmacy to the world. So we need to ensure that adequate stocks of TB drug should be there. Also, next thing that is there is that national TB control program needs to be strengthened so that it can ensure the effective implementation. Then TB patients, okay, particularly from the disadvantaged groups, fine, poor socioeconomic backgrounds, they needed to be provided all the awareness, they needed to be provided the accessibility of drugs. In this capacity nikshay mitra Nikshay Mitras have been Nikshay Mitra scheme has been started, where these Nikshay Mitras will be the dedicated personals who will support the TB patients. So now the point is that effective implementation is needed, because already we have reached 2024. 2025 is the date. 2025 is the year by which we aim to eliminate. Fine. So now urgent interventions are needed. Moving to next article. Import restrictions on solar PV cells. Import restriction on solar PV cells. Okay. So basically, guys, this article we are going to discuss with respect to the GS paper number 3, issues related to renewable energy. Issues related to renewable energy. Also, with respect to manufacturing sector in India and issues will take this particular article. Let's discuss first of all some basic things you need to understand. Now, guys, when we talk about solar energy, for solar energy, what we need these solar panels. Okay, and there are other components also that are there. But when we talk about these solar panels, fine, India's manufacturing capacity of these solar panels has not been very much good in the past, and because of that we depend a lot on China for these solar panels. Now, what has happened recently? Government has passed this approved list of government has passed this approved list of models and manufacturers of solar photovoltaic modules. Okay, now you'll ask that what is this particular list? Now see this thing. Government is procuring a lot of solar panels, a lot of solar power modules government is importing, because many schemes are there, fine, under which government is building the solar energy. Fine. Now, government says this particular thing that they will source the solar modules, they will source the solar panels only from those suppliers which have been approved in by the government. So what government has done? Government has come out with a list. In this particular list, it has provided the list of certain manufacturers and traders from whom the government will procure. So it contains the list of manufacturers who are eligible for use in government projects, government schemes. Now government says that actually we will procure from those people who are not importing from China, but rather who are manufacturing. So government says that we want to encourage the production of or manufacturing in India. So therefore, the ones who are importing from China, from them we are not going to import. Okay, this is something. Now understand this particular ALMM list, that is the list of approved suppliers. It was issued 2-3 years back also, but then it was rolled back. Then it was discontinued. Why it got discontinued? Because it was said that we don't have any manufacturing capacity today. How you can impose this thing? We need some time. So government kept it on hold. Now government says that actually what has happened, 3 years have happened, and in the past government has come out with the multiple initiatives which actually enhance the manufacturing of solar modules, solar panels in India. What government has come? Number one, government said that we have come out with this production linked incentive scheme. production linked incentive scheme. Now, what is production linked incentive scheme? In production linked incentive scheme, 2 to 4% of incentive is provided over the incremental sale, Under production linked incentive scheme, multiple sectors are there and solar sector is also included. So if you are manufacturing solar panels, solar modules in India, you will get a 2 to 4% incentive in this production linked incentive scheme. So it has been said that 2020 onwards, because of this PLI scheme, a lot of manufacturing capability for solar modules have been built in India. And because of that, now there are adequate number of suppliers of solar module who are actually manufacturing in India only. But is it true? Is it true? Let's see what the data says. Now, if we talk about, guys, solar cells in India, majority of solar cells in India, they come from China and Vietnam. Now this is the data provided by the Minister of New and Renewable Energy. It provides that 11.17 billion worth of solar cells and modules, fine, they have been imported, and particularly China, it accounts for 53% of India's solar cell imports and 63% for India's solar PV modules. Okay, so basically it provides that actually still the dependency on China and Vietnam is huge. You can see the data here. Also, it has been said that so therefore many people are skeptic that whether it is going to help or not. In totality, three things have happened which have promoted the solar module manufacturing in India. Number one, ALMM list, this list of approved list of models and manufacturers. Now, what we are doing through this ALMM list? We are incentivizing the manufacturers, the local manufacturers. Fine. So this is something that we are doing. Second, what has happened? We have come out with the production linked incentive scheme, where 2 to 4% of incremental incentive will be given to the manufacturers of the solar panels. And then what has happened? 40% increase in custom duty on PV modules and 25% import duty on PV cells. So imported solar modules, solar cells will be expensive. So what will happen? We need to develop them in-house. Okay. Now also understand this particular thing, that a question comes that why China is a leading exporter. Why 53% of solar cells and 63% of solar PV modules are exported by China? Guys, it is because that government in the past has supported the solar panel industry a lot. You see this thing, that basically when we talk about the solar panels or solar modules, in its manufacturing, lot of power is needed. Electricity accounts for 40% of the production cost, particularly for polysilicon, which is an important component, and 20% for ingots and wafers, which are again the important inputs in solar panels. So electricity is a 20 to 40% cost. But Chinese government, what they do? They provide subsidized and steady availability of power. Also, Chinese government, they have recognized solar PV cells as a strategic sector and have supported through policy financing. Now, when we talk about India, what India has done? India recently revised its INDCs, that is intended nationally determined contributions. Fine, which India took as a part of a Paris Agreement in 2015. Now, India provides that we will deploy our electricity primarily from the renewables. 500 gigawatt of installed capacity of India will come from the non-fossil fuels by 2030. In this, solar is going to be a major driver. Also, when we talk about India is facing the fastest rate of growth for demand for electricity. Okay, now understand this thing, middle class is rising in India, disposable income is increasing, anyhow we have the largest population in the world. So because of this thing, the consumption of electricity will go up, and as now new electricity that will be deployed will be from renewables, so solar is going to get prioritized. Fine. So country's estimated solar power potential is 748, around 750 gigawatt. So for that, indigenous capacity for solar panels, fine, has to be there. This is all about this article, guys. Uh, Guys, I hope that you are liking it. Fine. Now, moving on, health sector can't ignore green gains from telemedicine study. This article will see with respect to GS paper number 2, issues related to health. With respect to the health accessibility, we'll see this article. Also with respect to GS paper number 3, environment, we'll see this article. Okay, so there is one a kind of a different kind of an observation that has been made. So let's discuss article. Okay, so recently a study was conducted. A study was conducted at. So recently a study was conducted at LV Prasad, LV Prasad Eye Institute, Hyderabad. Now, this particular study has highlighted the potential of telemedicine, particularly in teleophthalmology. Teleophthalmology. What is ophthalmology? So basically, certain people, they develop certain eye conditions, eye infections, or some eye disorders are there. So basically, ophthalmology is the branch of medicine which deals with the ailments of eyes, That is the teleophthalmology. Now, often we see that a large number of people, they visit doctors for basic eye conditions. Now this study, it provides that 70 to 80% of the people who are visiting an eye hospital, actually they did not needed to visit an eye hospital. Their conditions are minor and they could have taken a teleconsultation from the doctor. Now these teleconsultations, they will offer a lot of benefit. For example, they are cost effective. So when people are traveling, let's say from a rural area to an urban city, fine, this traveling, it takes a lot of money. Then because they have to allocate time in the traveling, they are not working, they are not involving any productive activity. So cost effective. Second, it is convenient. Okay, and it also offers environmental benefits. Now we see that carbon emissions have increased, and guys, 88% of carbon dioxide emissions in India, they are from the traffic. So when people are going to a hospital uh, just to take an eye consultation, and if the condition is minor, rather than traveling, if they would have used the telemedicine, they would be able to save cost, it would be convenient, and it would be environmentally also sustainable. Now understand this thing, guys, that when we talk about the health care setup in India, you need to understand the situation. Majority of people in India, they still live in rural areas. If I give you the data, according to Niti Aayog, 41% of population will live in urban India by 2030. Okay, means majority of people today live in rural areas, but majority of health facilities, they are in urban area. So if you have to avail a treatment, people from rural areas are moving to urban areas. Okay, moving to urban areas. So this is something which can be avoided by the teleconsultation. Then there is a carbon footprint of healthcare institution also. If large number of hospital visits are there, fine. For accommodating these people also, a lot of energy expenditure will be there. So hospital itself has a huge carbon footprint. Now, teleophthalmology. Teleophthalmology. So what is teleophthalmology? Using video chat for availing the teleconsultation, and it can be done through soft smartphone applications, Zoom, WhatsApp calling. Fine, this can be done. So what we need to do? We need to promote the telemedicine adoption. Hospitals should be encouraged to use telemedicine. People are needed to be nudged to use the teleconsultation. Even in this capacity, there is a government initiative also that we have, that is the e-Sanjeevani OPD. E-Sanjeevani OPD, which is a government initiative to provide the telemedicine consultation. Integration of technology, we need to invest in stable internet connections, technological infrastructure, so that this telemedicine can be supported. Because if there will be lag, if there will be disconnect, if there is a poor quality of internet, it cannot sustain, it will generate frustration, and people eventually will prefer to go to a hospital. So then we need to raise public awareness. Often people think that doctor will not pay attention. Often people think that it is not effective, but public awareness that minor health concerns can be dealt through teleconsultation. This awareness needs to be built. And then policy support, we need to develop adequate policies, we need to incentivize healthcare providers. Okay, so this is guys all about it. Now, moving to the next article. Candidates have a right to privacy from voters, rules Supreme Court. Rules Supreme Court. Now, this particular article we are going to see with respect to GS paper number 2, issues related to polity. Issues related to polity. Now, in the past, we have seen that Supreme Court as well as Election Commission of India, Supreme Court as well as Election Commission of India, they have issued multiple directives that the candidates who are contesting elections, they have to provide information in the public domain with respect to their movable property, with respect to their immovable property, with respect to the criminal cases that they are facing. And it has been said by the Supreme Court and Election Commission both that it is to bring more transparency in elections. It is to bring more transparency in elections. Voter need to know every possible thing about the people that they are voting for. Fine, people need to have a complete knowledge about them. Now, Supreme Court has given a different kind of a judgment here. Supreme Court says that actually election candidates, they also have the right to privacy. Now, when we talk about right to privacy was recognized in Puttaswamy case. So, Puttaswamy case recognized that right to privacy is included under Article 21. Now, Supreme Court had said that even election candidates, they have their right to privacy, and it has been provided that the candidate can choose has a choice to retain his privacy, particularly in those matters which are of no concern to the voter or are irrelevant to his candidature. So it has been provided that, for example, suppose a candidate is having some movable or immovable property whose value is not that much, but the candidate does not want to share its information with the public. So they might not share it. It will not be, it will not be called as a corrupt practice under the section 123 of the Representation of People Act. But see, it should not be that much valuable. For example, I have a collection of watches. The value of this particular watch collection is, let's say, 5 crore rupees. 5 crore rupees. Now, this has to be declared because the value is that much. So it has been provided by candidate that it is not necessary that a candidate declare every item of movable property, fine, unless these items are of such value as to constitute a sizable asset. Fine. So this is something that has happened. Okay. So this is guys all about it. So there was one particular case. There was one particular case of a candidate that he has not declared that he had one scooty, one van which was used as an ambulance, and one motorcycle. Fine. So this is something that was there. Beyond that, guys, nothing much is in this article. Fine. Moving on, states UTs asked to submit data on heat stroke cases. So guys, now we see that election year is going on and campaigning is there. People are working out, delivery workers are working out. Fine, they are um, actually not working out. They are involved in occupations, delivering the services, all such things. They are very much vulnerable to heat strokes. And it has been predicted that heat strokes are going to be way more deadlier this year. So states as well as union territories, they have been asked that they should submit data on heat stroke cases, that how many people suffered the heat stroke, and this data is to be submitted on integrated health information portal. Fine. So this is to be there. By that, government is going to see that what we need to do. Okay. So basically, this is all about it is that is there. Okay. Beyond, guys, this nothing much important is there. So basically, when we talk about heat stroke, who are more vulnerable? Elderly people, young children, patients suffering from chronic illness, the people on multiple medications, they are more prone to uh, heat, uh, heat strokes. And severe heat strokes, it can lead to other problems also. For example, it lead to blood clots. So hydration is essential. Now these are the basic things that you know. Fine. This is, guys, all about it. And with this, we come to an end to the today's session. Guys, I hope that you are liking the video. Guys, please, if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comment box. And one thing I just want to address, that certain students, they have this, okay, sir, please enable download button. See, we have not disabled download button. This video is being streamed live. So basically what will happen, this video will be processed at the end of YouTube. Then YouTube will make it available for download. Okay, it is not in our control. From our side, we have not disabled any download button. If you'll go back and you'll see old videos, they are available for download. Fine. So this processing happens at the end of YouTube. So that is all about it.